Welcome everybody to this episode of Shala. That's a very innovative and unique name, Tushar Bhai. I do appreciate it. And I'm going to run you through basically a session which has to do with email etiquette and email tips and the preferred protocols to be followed while indulging in business communication. That's one word that we forgot to add over there, business emails. I'm not going to be talking to you all about writing personal emails at all. That you can continue in whichever manner that you all deem fit. Just to give you an idea of the agenda of today's presentation, it's going to cover things like the style and the subject, how the to and the from fields should be correctly filled out, what kind of salutation and sign-offs are there, how spell checks and attachments are an important part of emails, how they are to be treated, what happens, what exactly is a trail mail and how it should be treated, who should be on the CC, who should be BCC, and what the protocols are for that, what it means, and how forwards should ideally be tackled. So I'm going to run you through basically this. And while I'm running you through this, you guys have the option of either interjecting when you have a question, or if you all prefer, I can do a Q&A session after the session is over. In my opinion, the session should not take more than 25 minutes or so. And that's your call, whichever you all prefer. You can prefer it. You'll all take a decision. Tushar Bhai, this decision can come from you. If they prefer to, do it in between, I'm fine with that. If they want to do it after, I'm fine with that as well. So you guys can take the call based on that. Okay. Right. So before I start the session, this is a little bit of a disclaimer slide. And this disclaimer slide is to tell you that the email and writing, email tips and etiquette are a very huge field with a lot of, subfields in it. So it's a very personal choice. What I'm going to be running you through is my personal choice on how I believe email should be written. There is absolutely no set formula. It differs from industry to industry. And you guys can choose what you wish to absorb from this session. And in case some of it seems to be too basic or too obvious for some of you, that's also a likelihood that it might be a little too basic for some of you. Please do forgive me for that. But since sometimes people say common sense is not so common. Similarly, not everybody has the basics of an email writing. So I'm going to run you through some pretty basic stuff as well. And like I mentioned before, ideally you might want to take some tips from this presentation and ultimately tailor make it for your own business, which is likely to make the most sense. Tushar bhai, there's some audio which is coming continually. Would you be able to point out where that's coming from?
So all are requested to put their mic mute, so that there won't be any disturbance. So whenever you want to speak, you unmute and you speak.
Perfect. Thank you, Tushar bhai. Anyone has to ask a question in between, feel free. I'm happy to take questions while the session is going on. All right. So the first and foremost thing is the underlying style of an email. All right. So the first and foremost, we talk about how not to be too informal, because what happens very often is when you're informal with your internal team or informal with your suppliers, you tend to carry that same amount of informality onto your business emails as well. So in way of example, you can see example one. Hi sir, PFA, the quote FYI and NA awaiting your order. So those of you in business, all of you must be knowing PFAs. Please find attached FYIs for your information and necessary action awaiting your order, Shada. Now, I would not recommend writing this style of mails even internally and even to your suppliers, because it becomes a habit. So what I strongly recommend is get into the right habit of writing emails correctly. Something like this. And again, there's nothing is set in stone. This is just an example that I'm giving. I can probably give another 23 examples, but it would just not be conducive to finishing this thing today. It would probably go on to tomorrow, which we don't want. So just to give you an example, dear Rajiv ji, it could be Mr. Rajiv, or, Rajiv sir, or whatever. Why it's not just dear sir is because you want to address somebody personally. So please put their name in there. And if it is someone very senior and you don't want to use the name, you could use Mr. So-and-so, Mrs. So-and-so, that's also fine. Further to our discussion earlier today, please find attached full words, mind you. Herewith the proposal as required. We look forward to valuable order. So there's a salutation, there's a sign off, warm regards with a full name. Because sometimes putting just a first name, there may be 3 Shardas in the company or something like that. So please put your full name. Put your designation, ideally, especially while communicating with clients. and also a contact number where you may be contacted. If you don't wish to share your contact number, if you're very senior up in your own organization, that's fine. You can easily share your email ID over there, and or your website or whatever you want. But there should be some kind of a signature when you are signing off. And the more we make it a habit to do this with all our communication, the more formal and nicer our business communication style becomes. So this is the underlying style of the email. Now we'll get into more specifics on how you can write an effective email. The first thing that is very, very important is the subject line. Okay, it's a huge, it's a place where people can go wrong a lot. So please make sure your subject line is accurate. Accurate as in what the email of your body is about. Please ensure that your subject is actually describing that in a short way. Why in a short way? Because if your subject line is not brief and you're going to try and talk more about the email in the subject itself, it makes no sense. It's like reading a book which has got 33 words in the title itself. You don't want to read that in the title. About 5 days ago, I got a very interesting mail from one of my technical staff. And in the subject itself, he said, "Dear sir, I want to apply for leave. My mother is not well, therefore I'm going to the village. Thank you." And the entire thing was in the subject line itself. So if you are writing an email, there's no point of writing an email if the subject has that. It would be better if the subject simply said, "Leave as mother is unwell," or something like that. So please make sure your subject line is always accurate, pertaining to the subject of what the mail contains. Please make sure it is brief, changed when necessary. Now, why? What happens is sometimes when you have a trail mail that's going on for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, or a month, or sometimes even longer, we tend to offshoot from a particular subject. So, for example, if you sent a quote to a quotation to a client, and you write over there proposal for so and so factory, and then after about 2 months, the client replies back and says, "Hey, I'm looking for a person who does Wi-Fi. Do you know somebody?" And then you will say, "Yes, I know Tushar Bhai who does Wi-Fi." And again, the subject is still saying quote for factory. Now, if you do that, when the client wants to search, he is not going to be able to search. So therefore, it is very important, especially when you have a long sustained relationship with a client or a supplier or anybody, that you always make sure that you change the subject line, even if you're hitting reply all, which many of us do. We don't always compose a new subject. We just hit reply all. But if the subject is changing from the trail mail, please change the subject. Most importantly, because subject line is a very, very important search tool. Now, if I've had a long-standing relationship with a client and there's 50 mails regarding a factory in Ambernath, which I have done work for, and I have got 25 mails which actually don't talk about that factory at all, when he's searching for that particular, that particular incident or problem or site, he's going to find 25 mails which aren't related. He's going to go through them and say, "Oh, it's so tough communicating with this company. They're not clear." Whereas if they are clear, what happens is when he does a search, he finds an entire bunch of mails beautifully describing exactly what each one is, and it's easier for them to go forward. Now, coming to the to and the CC and the BCC and the from, again, very often ignored factors of a mail. To me personally, I find them very, very important, because you have to realize the difference between to, CC and BCC. Very often I have seen people putting everybody's names in the to field only. ये 3 फील्ड काय के लिए है, सबको एक ही फील्ड में डालो, क्या फर्क पड़ता है अपने को? It's absolutely unacceptable. Typically, again, there's nothing set in stone. Typically, when you send a mail to someone on the in the to column or the to row, it's for information and necessary action. I'm going to repeat that: information and necessary action. Because if you're sending an action mail to one person and two other people need to know about it, you don't send a necessary action mail to three people, because then they will get confused who's supposed to act on that mail. Now, for example, Tushar Bhai wants to send a mail to his sales executive, and he also includes his operations executive in that. Then the operations executive is going to get confused. This mail is coming to me. It's not CC'd to me. So should I also be acting on it? Hence, to is typically for action. CC, that is your carbon copy, is typically for information's sake. Okay. Of course, if it's a very big team, then they'll decide who needs to act upon it. And BCC, which is also known as a blind CC, is for information without others needing to know that the person has been copied. Now, for example, I know that Tushar Bhai's company gives phenomenal service and everybody is really happy with it all the time. And Mahavir Bhai is very happy with Tushar Bhai with his service and everything. There's no problem. God forbid, Tushar Bhai's one person forgets to do some work for Mahavir Bhai. Mavi Bhai doesn't want that person to get into trouble. He sends a mail to that person, Bhai mera kaam karo. And he just wants Tushar Bhai to be in the loop कि Bhai, I have spoken to your staff directly, thoda dam diya unko. Then you put Tushar Bhai in a BCC. So Tushar Bhai is aware that Mavi Bhai has given dam to his person. At the same time, the staff is not feeling bad कि मेरे को sir के सामने चिल्लाया, and everyone is happy. Yes, if it gets escalated tomorrow, you might want to put Tushar Bhai in the CC. If it gets escalated further, Tushar Bhai, your team is not working too. And then after that, CC will be the gentleman who's not done the job. So there are ways to use the two CC and BCC effectively. Also, when you're sending out, say, a sales mail or a promo mail to someone, you typically put your own name, in the two, and you put everybody else's name in the BCC, because others should not. You should never be sharing other people's emails with other people. It's absolutely wrong. Now, this particular, the last part here to me is the most important of all. That's the from. What happens with us is whenever we configure our from, we do it in multiple ways. I'm going to give you two typical examples. One is through a web browser, that is Gmail, which most people use. And the other is through a mail client like Outlook, which again, most people who use clients use Outlook. So I'm going to give you these two examples. When you configure accounts through your web, sometimes you do it on your home com, office com, phone, please understand that each one of these devices will have a certain sending protocol from. So what happens is when your mail is configured wrongly, let's assume my email ID is rohit@cbex.in. Now, when I send a mail to Tushar Bhai, I don't want his from being rohit@cbex.in. I want it to be Rohit Chabria-Cbex Security Systems, so that it's clean, it looks nice, it's not an email that's coming in the from. So when you configure your email inbox, outbox, SMTP servers, etc., whichever IT person is doing it, please ensure that the mail address is different from the from name. Mail address is fine, whatever it is in the backend, but the from name must be correct. So for example, if it's a sales department, okay, the sales, it should not be sales, it should be paths-sales. It cannot be just sales, because I get on a daily basis, and I'm not joking, at least 8 to 10 mails from people who have a generic from in their, in the mail. So it's from admin, from sales, from projects, from Tushar sir. I mean, you can't send a mail saying Tushar sir, because you as an IT person have configured the mail for your boss, but you're writing from Tushar. Arey, which Tushar sir? Which company? The person that's getting it is not getting it correctly. So whether you are configuring an Outlook, multiple machines, or on the web, the from email and the from name are very, very different. So I strongly recommend that if you have multiple email accounts in multiple devices, please send test mails from each one of them to your own staff or own wife or sister or brother, so that you see how it's coming, or even to yourself for that matter, to your other accounts. And that is very important. I used to have a guy sending me mails saying CMD. He was the chairman and managing director of a company. But what is CMD? Bhai, kaun se company ka CMD se mail aa raha hai? I never knew until I opened the mail. So that's a really bad way of configuring mails. Be very, very careful on this front. It sends a very bad impression to your clients, even your suppliers or anybody you may be talking with.
Rohit, may I ask you something?
Yes.
On the previous slide about the from.
Yes.
I really like that concept of yours. Now, is there a recommended practice you recommend that, okay, first name and the company, or is there something which you recommend?
Fantastic question. So when I personally send out my mail from my personal account, I write my full name, that is Rohit Chabria. When I send out a mail, or my staff sends out a mail from the info account, which is the standard or the catch-all account, then they put CBEX Security Systems. When it goes from projects, it goes CBEX Security Systems dash projects. When it goes from accounts, it goes from CBEX Security Systems dash accounts. Now, again, this is how I like to follow my protocol. I'm not saying everyone has to have the same methodology. You find what you find the most comfortable, what your clients will identify with, or as you will see in my last slide, how you would like to receive mails, in the same way. So if you feel that this is easy for me to read, make it easy for others to read. So that's a very valid question, Vinayak.
So may I just sorry, just the last question.
Go ahead.
Does it apply to, now whatever you spoke about was catch-all emails or generic emails? What about email like Vinayak Pai at abhiyan.online? Okay, so now
Correct.
How would you put it there?
So if you have multiple companies, then I would say Vinayak Pai Abhiyan and Vinayak Pai XYZ company. If you have multiple company accounts and you want people to know which company you're sending it from, if it doesn't matter which company you're sending it from, then just Vinayak Pai is fine. And whichever you send, they will reply back to you over there. Like supposing you have 4 businesses and different sets of clients know you from those 4 businesses. That's fine. You can have just Vinayak Pai in all of them, or if you wish, Vinayak Pai dash so and so company. But that's completely a matter of personal choice. But don't have, like just Vinayak or just sales or just home computer, office
Correct.
computer. These kind of things are absolute no. Hence, one must test mails before sending, starting to send official mails out to people. Does that
Yeah,
answer
thank
your
you.
question?
Thank you. Yeah, it answers that. Thank you so much. I'll make
No,
that
no, no.
change.
Yes, sir. Please do. Thank you. All right. So we are coming to the salutation and the sign off part of the mail. It's just like when you meet somebody, say, most people here know what an elevator pitch is. An elevator pitch is to make when you meet somebody for the first time, maybe, and you have just 20, 30 seconds to make an impression. You'll typically say, hi, I'm Rohit Stav here. I'm in the security business and I work out of Bandra and I've been doing this for the past 25, something like that. The point is, you can't start talking business with anybody straight off. Okay, it's very important to have some sort of a salutation, a rap, or even a good word here and there. It's like how we were taught even as kids. Hi, how are you? Hope you are well. It's not, you don't even, you pick up the phone, you don't normally talk to anybody. You say hello, how are you, or whatever. You don't just say "Mere liye kaam kar de." Of course, if it's somebody known or your staff or something, it's a different story. But when you're talking in business communication, please sign sign off rightly and also salute correctly. That's your hi, hello. So, dear Achit, I'm just giving an example. Again, there's so many examples, we'll never be able to cover them. But just to give an example, dear Achit, greetings from CBEX. I trust this mail finds you in good health. It's one way of saying, hi, how are you? Hope you're okay, all okay, why, COVID times, etc. Not dear sir, stroke madam, or hello, please ensure you send me my goods by tomorrow. No, I mean, you don't lose much. It's like a 4 or 5 or 8 seconds typing. Hope all is well. And why not dear sir or madam? Because you need to address people a little better, a little more personally. If you know you're writing to a mail, please write dear sir, but don't write dear sir stroke madam. It's like jisko likha so likha. It's not a nice way to write a mail to a business associate. So have a good salutation. Could be greetings, or it could be depending on what time you're writing the mail. Could be good afternoon. And Vinayak, I know that you also had this as a practice in your mails for a long time. It's a good way to talk. Similarly, even when you sign off, don't just sign off and abruptly sign off a mail. You finished your mail, you communicated your message. Now you need to say something like, I look forward to your feedback, or feel free to revert with queries if any, or warm regards, yours sincerely. Now these are business mails, no lots of love, no bye, no yours affectionately. And however cute these things may sound when you're writing personal emails to people or you're doing the WhatsApp culture, remember, emails are very different from WhatsApp and text messages. We've all got into this text culture. And there's one thing I've completely forgotten to mention over here, which I might as well say now because I've not written it in my slides. Short forms. Don't use short forms. I'm going to repeat that for effect. Don't use short forms. I'm going to repeat that for effect one more time. Do not use short forms when you're typing. All right. It's just not acceptable. My last line over there says, we will send our technician tomorrow. The reason why I put it there is because the day I was making this PPT, I saw one of my people actually tell one of our clients who's been with us for 18 years, who communicates a lot with us for various, we have got 800 cameras installed there. So there's a lot of, back and forth going off with AMCs, etc., etc. And one of my people said, we will send our technician tomorrow as a reply to a mail. I took great exception to that and said, we've made templates, which I will explain a little later. Even if you don't want to write templates, you need to write dear so-and-so. Thank you for your mail. We will send our technician tomorrow. Please give them some kind of a time indicator so they're not randomly waiting for 24 hours in a day when your person is going to come. Please have a proper salutation and say, we have noted your complaint and we'll send our technician tomorrow before 12 noon or something like that. Take care, be well, all the best. Anything, have a salutation and sign off. But don't be so abrupt with your clients. Don't take them for granted just because they've been with you for 18 years. Right? You may have a great rapport with them, but you still need to show them the respect. And it's nice to get a mail with 3 or 4 extra words. I'm not asking you to write a Mahabharata. Okay. We are coming to the mail body, which is the main part of the mail. Okay. Now you'll see the first line that says complete and brief. Sounds like a bit of an oxymoron, but it's very, very important. I'll explain to you why. When you write a mail to your clients or to your suppliers or whoever, any business communication, make sure that your communication is complete. When I say complete, it means that it covers all the points that you have set out to tell the person at the outset of the mail. Not only that, if the issue is a certain issue XYZ, make sure that you are completely addressing that issue. Reason being that when you do not completely address an issue, there is back and forth. And if you are sending this mail to 4 and 6 people, then more people might be sending back the mail saying, I didn't understand this, or but what about this, or you were not clear in that point. Please make sure your mail completes all, has is complete with all the issues in question. Don't leave gunjaish for back and forth. That is a wrong way to write a mail. It increases communication, and if 16 14 people are copied on it, everyone gets extra mails for stupid things. Oh, I forgot the attachment. Oh, I forgot this. Oh, I forgot that. And okay, he'll come at 2 o'clock. I forgot to say that. Please write your mail carefully. At the same time, brevity, being brief, is a very, very important part of email communication. Nobody today, especially in today's age where attention spans have decreased tremendously, nobody has the time to read long, boring, repetitive emails. So while you do need to give complete information, you also need to give brevity in your mail so that that complete information is communicated more effectively. Last point in this slide will cover this. I'm going to come to it, how you can actually go about this for yourself, because I know there's a lot of people here saying, हाँ ये तो बोलना आसान है कि बड़ा सब कुछ लिख मगर छोटा लिख. He is not being very clear. I will come to that also in a little bit. Okay, now here's the trail. Very often we have communication that goes on for a long period of time. Like I said, it could be an issue, it could be an order, it could be a project that's taking very long, it could be any of these. So the trail mail becomes very important for people to review. Now, very often in my line of business, I'm doing maybe 50, 80, 100 projects a year, 200 projects a year. I do not remember what is happening at a particular site of mine, what the architect said, what we decided 12 months, 14 months ago when this was happening. So if the trail is included in the mail for a particular subject, again, coming back to that subject, for that subject, find that subject, make sure the trail is included, because very often when a person, you need a decision from a client, for example, that decision can be taken quickly if the trail is included. This becomes a part of that first word, which I said, make a complete mail. So keep that trail there. It's important so that people can refer to it, just scroll down rather than close that window, especially in Gmail. I don't know how people use Gmail. I find it very difficult. I use Outlook. It's far easier for me, at least, especially in Gmail, where you have to close, go back, check the trail, again, open the window. It's a little difficult. So I strongly suggest make sure complete with a trail mail for that subject. When you write a mail, make sure the flow is logical. So you might have an issue that is most important that needs to be addressed, but make sure that all the issues that are addressed are in some kind of a logical sequence. Do not jump from here to there. That becomes very difficult for people. They can't understand your mail, and then they tend to have misunderstandings, which leads to business problems. You're doing this in personal mails, don't worry about it. It's okay. People will figure it out. They'll just call you. When you're sending a mail to 6 people in a client's team, how do you know they're going to understand what you've written if you're going to be jumping from one point to another? Don't jump. Before you write a mail, write your logical flow in one word, two word point form, and say, okay, I'm going to first talk about the design of the project. Then I'm going to talk about the project itself. Then I'm going to talk about the timelines for delivery. Then I'm going to have my salutation. Just write this down in one word, and then start typing your paragraphs under it. If it's going to be a long mail, make sure it's flowing very logically. Now the next one is meetli churi. Now you'll be wondering where that has come from. In my life, I have had many instances where people have quite simply pissed me off. Pardon the French here, but they just have. So at times like this, you need to communicate what you're feeling. In a business mail, if you communicate what you're feeling in any kind of a hurry or with the wrong kind of words, it could be detrimental for your business in the long term. At the same time, you have a lot of things inside you and you want to get this point across to somebody. Maybe a supplier who's giving you a lot of grief, pardon me, who's giving you a lot of trouble, is always delayed with their, this thing. Or maybe even a client who's always delayed with their payments. And you said, enough is enough. I can't take this. I need to send this mail to the purchase department, the finance department, and copy the MD and know that I am upset. You can't use the words, I am upset, give me my bloody money now or else. You have to find a way to do it with a meaty churi. Kaatna hai to kaato, but make sure your tone is very, very sweet. समझने वाले समझ जाएंगे. They will understand. ये he's being, a little bit terse with me, but he's worded it nicely, so I can't even get back to it. say, तूने ऐसे क्यों बात किया? So write a mail in such a way where a person cannot get back to you and say, why did you use that language? You can always, अरे मैंने तो इतने प्यार से बोला. And that's important because at times you do need to let out steam. Make sure your signature is again complete, has the right amount of information, not too long. If you need to be reached at a certain place, or you want to make your latest product known, give it social media or YouTube handle. And your signature can keep changing or adding a little bit, which is changeable always. Make sure that it's not, like I said, not too long. Fancy fonts, colors, whether in the mail body or in the signature. Fancy fonts and colors, absolute no. We are not here to display our artistic skills. We want it clean, simple, and nice. If you need to make a point somewhere, then sure, you can maybe change the color of something which is important. Many people have always put a message about, please don't print this mail if you don't need to in green. See, that's a sensible message. Okay, doesn't matter. But if you just want to draw attention to your address differently and your some product differently, and you put 6 colors in your signature, excuse me, please don't do it. It's a very bad idea. Why the last word templates, I said I'm going to get back to, is very often we all want to write good emails, but we may not have the skill set, we may not have the right kind of temperament, we might not have the right kind of command over the language. You might be better off in Gujarati or Hindi than we are in English. But kya hai, business is the, English is the preferred business communication. So don't feel shy to hire people. Now there are people who do CRM, that's your customer relationship management portals, etc. And many mails are automated. Especially where they're automated, you must use somebody who is either in your own company, great at writing emails, okay, or hire somebody who can write these templates for 15, 18, 20, 40 different scenarios. Acceptance of order, first execution of order, mail to the client, mail to the purchase department, mail to my supplier, mail to admin. There may be many similar processes that are constantly repeated, and for that, simply write good templates, keep them in a repository, either on each person's computer or a central repository, copy, paste. We do not want to get into trouble with that. So if there's a standard format, leave a few things empty where they fill in the details for that particular client, mail, project, whatever, send it. With that, what happens is, that your staff is not making the same mistakes again and again. So that is very important. And that you're using the best possible language for a scenario. It also happens that as your business goes on, there may be new scenarios that are cropping up. Ask that person who's written your templates to just draft new templates. Ask the person you hired to draft new templates. Keep them on a retainer. This is my situation. Give me. But that communication which you're using for years, 2, 5, 10 years, more than worth it paying that money to get the right kind of templates so that your mails look professional and people remember you for them. And there's, more importantly, no damn miscommunication, because miscommunication, all married people will know, is the crux of all the problems in the world. So miscommunication is a no, be careful. All right. So now you finished your mail, you finished your to, from, etc., etc. You want to do a spell check. So the first thing you check is the name. Now it's very important that the person you're writing to, how they spell their name. The other day I wrote a mail to someone called Meghna, and I wrote Meghna, but she spells it Meghana. That's how she spells it. So take that little effort and write a mail according to how someone actually spells their own name. See it in their signature, it's there in their last mail. So someone spells Tushar with a double A, make sure you use that double A. Someone like me spells Shabria with a single H, which incidentally is wrong, but that's how we spell it in our family. Please spell it that way. Okay. Similarly, you have to check your mail and check capitalization, ensure the right paragraphs are capitalized, etc., etc. And while on paragraphs, there's another thing I forgot to mention in the body of the mail. It's very important that each time you're shifting a little bit of your topic or a next, the next logical flow, you please put a line and a paragraph. Do not continue your mails in one paragraph. It is the worst thing you can ever do. So write your salutation, enter, leave a line. First paragraph, enter, leave a line. Even though there's 15 paragraphs, please make sure that you leave 15 lines, one between each, so that the mail looks nice, neat, and organized, and people can answer paragraph by paragraph. Sometimes you might want to reply back and say, hey, see my replies in red. If you have bifurcated your mail, it becomes a lot simpler. If you write one big lamba paragraph, nobody likes to read that. Paragraphing based upon each changing bit of logic and each different subject within a mail is very important. So make sure that you mail check. There are tools available in Outlook, Gmail. Make sure capitalization is there, especially on people's names of the days, etc., etc. Punctuation. Now, I can do an entire 3-hour session on punctuation, but we're not going to get into it. There is a difference between commas, full stops, semicolons, colons, brackets, closing brackets. Each one of them, a dash, everything has a different meaning. So, like I said, if your templates take care of it, it's fine. But the basic stuff, like let's eat, Dadima, is telling your grandmother, let's have a meal. Whereas if you say, let's eat, Dadima, without the pause, you want to eat your grandmother. So please understand that a comma can change your life. It can change the entire meaning of 3 simple words like let's eat, Dadima. So please do not send stuff out without first spell checking and ensuring your punctuation is good. Do not use bold letters. Do not use caps. If you need to make an impact, try using different words. So it's like very good, Kele, use excellent. Things like that. Try using better words. Sometimes if you really, really desperately need to make an impression, you may bold one word rather than capsing an entire paragraph. Pardon me. Do not put capitalization on any emails because it comes across as you screaming. You can underline a word for effect, but don't put caps. And if your client or your supplier feels you're screaming, it really reflects badly on you. Before you send your mails, read them aloud once. So that's especially important mails, not all, you can't do that whole day long, but if you know a mail is important, like sometimes when I send a proposal out, and a very, very complicated proposal with many design parameters, I read my design mail to see how the flow is sounding, read it aloud to see how the flow is sounding to my client. So read your important mails aloud so that you know that it's sounding good. Now, what happens is if you are emotionally charged, and again, that's something that happens to me pretty often, and I have succumbed to the temptation of typing out in furious speed an email which I'm angry about with lots, and my poor keyboard has taken the hit for that, bichara. I'm angry. Send. I have made that mistake in the past. Please sleep over it. If you are emotionally charged about any subject, the world is not going to end unless there's a very, very specific deadline on your project. Send the mail the next day, please. Okay. Yeah, a small little bit, we're coming to the end of my presentation. Attachments. So make sure that all attachments are always, especially, I mean, if it's few KB here and there, it doesn't matter. But when it goes into MBs, zip and compress all attachments. All right. If it's very, very large and someone's mail servers may reject them, and they often do, mind you, many companies have a 5 or a 10 or a 15 MB limit to their mails. So if your mails are large, it could be AutoCAD drawings, which I use a fair bit, things like that. Use stuff like G Drive, WeTransfer. There are so many free tools available for us to use. Please use those so that you don't clog somebody's server or your mail doesn't get rejected or go into spam. Avoid opening unknown attachments. I mean, the whole world tells you that, any cybersecurity person says, but please do not open unknown attachments because it's very simple for Trojans to come into your computer. Use an antivirus for not just your incoming, but even your outgoing attachments, because inadvertently, if you send out a virus to some person whose computer gets affected, lene ke dene pad jate hain, that person's never going to forget he got a virus from your company. So please use nice antiviruses for both incoming as well as outgoing. Now, be responsible when you're forwarding. How to respond to mails, how to forward, how to reply, what is reply all. So when someone sends you a mail, don't ever assume the intent, especially if it's harming you or it's bothering you. Don't assume the intent. Read it again, and if you still are assuming bad intent, pick up the phone and clarify. Because email, any written communication, including WhatsApp, when my wife has ever fought with me on WhatsApp, I tell her, listen, let's never argue on WhatsApp, because the tone, the tonality of your voice is not communicated effectively. So please don't ever assume intent. You please call up and clarify. Make sure that you acknowledge and respond to mails. It's very rude if someone has sent you a mail, even if it's a simple action that you need to do, or they've given you information. Don't ignore the mail. Typing one THANKS is not a problem, even for internal communication. My staff sends me dozens of WhatsApp messages and mails in a day giving me information I need in order to design my systems better. And I always reply with at least a THX, if nothing more than that, because they're my internal staff, that, hey, I have got your response. I acknowledge you. Thank you for being there. Don't ignore people's mails. Learn how to respond to them. I've already told you about including a mail in reply. Ideally, you should include the mail in reply. If need be, some people choose not to. That's a personal choice. As far as business communication is concerned, all kinds of forwards, unless they are forwards which have to do with a particular industry or have to do with something which like an educational slot like this one, all forwards, jokes, politics, controversy are a big, 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 big no. Religion, etc. Do not forward any mails to anybody in your business circle with jokes, politics, religion, anything. And if that forward is a technical forward, something which you feel like, I got an email, something to do with antivirus. I thought Tushar Bhai is going to find that mail interesting. I'll forward it to Tushar Bhai, but I will type one line in that mail. Hey, Tushar, thought you might find this is interesting. Best regards, Rohit. Because you're not just forwarding. He doesn't know whether you broadcasted this to 50 people or you know what you've done. Please have a little courtesy and put in a one line, especially when you are thinking of someone. Typing that one line doesn't take time. So when you forward to many, like I said, I told you earlier, make sure that the two is your own email ID or your own office email ID, and all the other IDs are not shared with the whole world. They have to be in blind CC so that nobody else can see each other's. Also, before you hit reply all, please look at who all are recipients. Even if there's undisclosed recipients in BCC, sometimes the reply goes to those undisclosed recipients. It can be 300 people. You don't need to send it. You're only trying to send the reply back to the sender. So please don't hit reply all every time randomly. Think a little before you hit reply all. So the presentation so far is over, but what you need to understand is that there's nothing set in stone. There's no formula. So how does one, figure out what they want to do? So just like people say, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Similarly, when you're writing emails, please type unto others as you would have them type unto you. How would you like to receive those emails? Would you like long ambling emails or have, bullshit forwards coming to you? No. So when you next time type an email, think, how would I like to receive this email? That pretty much brings me to the end of my presentation. And it's just an overview of what you can do with your business emails. You can go into details a lot. We're not going to get into that. I think I've taken a lot of time already. So if there's any queries that anyone has, I shall be more than happy to address them.
Yeah, I wanted to know, when do we use yours sincerely and yours faithfully?
There's very little difference between the two. I prefer sincerely in business communication because it conveys that I am sincerely talking with you. Faithfully to me is a more dated English way of communication, which was, I still believe, you just imagine, whom would you have faith, like whom would you be faithful to? More likely to be to someone personally rather than the business communication. So I would preferably use the word sincerely. Again, a personal choice. But having said that, both are perfectly acceptable in the business world. It's a personal choice. I prefer sincerely for sure.
And what about just the regards?
Regards, kind regards, warm regards. See, all those are also fine. Regards is very, very neutral. You can't go wrong with it. Warm regards to someone, kind regards to someone you want to, be a little more formal with. Warm regards would only come into someone you are actually close to and have a good relationship. So if you're writing, say it's my sales guy writing a mail to one of my female clients who doesn't know, and he writes warm regards, I'm going to pull him up and say, dude, you do not know her well enough to have warm regards for her. So regards is very neutral. Kind regards is absolutely as good as regards, no harm. It's a very nice phrase, better than yours sincerely, yours faithfully, because everyone is using that today. And like I said, it's neutral. You can't go wrong with it. No harm.
Rohit, question from Sonesh. He is not audible, so he's typed, can we use respected sir or respected madam instead of dear sir or dear madam?
Absolutely, absolutely. There's no difference between the two at all. Make sure you put a comma after that. Respected sir, comma, enter, next line. That's typically how you write it. Don't write respected sirs, full stop, right on the same line. All these are again very, very intricate matters which can go on forever if we start to think. But respected sir, dear sir, both are absolutely fine. There's very little difference between the two. But just respected becomes a little more formal even than dear. Dear shows a little bit of endearment. Respect is pure respect and no endearment whatsoever. So it becomes a little more formal, no harm. Absolutely. Again, it depends on what level in the hierarchy you at, what level in the hierarchy you're writing to someone to. I am being a business owner, so a lot of my perspectives that I've reached out today are from the perspective of a business owner. Whereas someone is a junior admin person who's writing a lot to senior people in other companies, then the word respected would be a lot more used than, like I even at some levels with my clients who have a great rapport with, I would say, hi Samrat, comma, Next line, how are you doing? Question mark, hope all is well with you? Question mark, I wanted to talk to you about so and so. It becomes a pretty informal setting. But being a business owner and knowing the guy personally, I can do that. But again, depends on, it's very, very subjective based upon your what position you're in the hierarchy, what position your company is with regards to the person you're writing to, how old the person is that you're writing to, how well you've known them for how long. I mean, there's just so many parameters, and there's no set formula. You have to like go with your gut feel, basically. There's really no set formula.
I think so. What you said about dear and the name, you cannot go wrong there. I guess
Yeah,
that's the
dear
easiest
Mr.
way.
So and so, or dear Miss so and Miss. And again, the difference between Miss and Ms. is very important. You
Yeah.
write Miss specifically for someone who's unmarried, but the best way, you never write MISS, avoid it completely. For every female, MS full stop. Ms. It's pronounced Ms. And for every male, MR full stop. You cannot go wrong with that. That's just very, very safe. Married, unmarried, doesn't matter. MS full stop for a female, MR full stop for a male, not MISS, and it's pronounced MIZ, Ms, but written MS full stop.
If the person,
Yes, sir.
if the person is married, then MRS would do.
MRS would do, but safety MS is even better because Ms implies unmarried or married. It doesn't matter.
But no, but if you know the person is married, that's what
There's absolutely no harm. But abhi aajkal ke zamane mein, I'll tell you, sir, what the problem with that is. I have a cousin who is using her surname Mehta before she was married, and she's married to one Mr. Gupta, who's a very, very big shot in the consultancy world. So a lot of people, especially the bankers and all, assume her name is Mrs. Gupta. And she says, no, my name is still Mehta. So then she doesn't become Mrs. She's MS. So to be ultra safe, I'm again repeating, don't get into the Mrs. Chakkar, Ms. That is MS full stop. You can't, because kya hota, someone's married, they might get divorced, and then they don't want the word Mrs. to be used. They want Miss to be used. You don't know she's divorced. You know her as married. You don't know her separated. She's going to take offense. And now with the he, she, they, them thing coming into place, it's just better to be safer and write MS and, Ms. So and so, Mr. So and so. It's nice and safe.
May I just add, Rohit, to this?
Yes, sure, Vinay.
So I would always recommend put the name of the person. You'll never go wrong. You put Miss if you want, but put the name, because that's how they are known by. So it becomes far more safer. Means if you're asking if the question was more from a safety perspective, I guess.
Sir, I had one more question, please.
Please go ahead.
Yes. So I have a firm in the name of Ashwa Bricon. So whenever I write a mail after warm regards, am I supposed to be writing the firm's name first and then mine, or my name as an authority first and then comes my firm's name?
Always
so this is a
your
question always confuses me. So I don't know whose authority should be at the first place.
Always your name. Always your
My name first and then my firm's name.
Yes, then your firm's name. Because see, you're writing the mail. Your firm is not writing the mail. You're writing on behalf of your firm. Your firm cannot sit and type. A person has to sit and type. So whoever's sitting and typing the mail has to write their name under that, either in brackets or on behalf of, or for so and so company, any of that, or just the company's name. It's standard. Like I put my name and below that my company's signature and logo comes automatically. So yes.
Okay, so I was assuming because it is company who is sending the mail, as in not the typing part, but the company represents the mail. So I assume all these days that the company name should come first and then my name.
No,
okay.
Never.
Got
never.
rectified. Thank you so much.
More than well.
So shall we conclude the session, because it's already over time?
Okay.
Yeah. So it is 6 o'clock. Done. So thank you, Rohit. Thank you very much for taking this session on my request. It's amazing session. Even my full staff is actually just now in the system. So good. Thank you very much.
My
so I'm
pleasure,
done concluding the session. So Rohit, you please send me this recording, so I will upload all the things. And thank you all the participants and all the users for supporting us. So we may arrange the third session. Thank you very much. Thank you to all.
Once again, thank you for the invite.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for inviting. Thank you for helping us with all this knowledge. Genuinely, thank you.
Thank you.